While we can have the best loadout and rotations, the bottom line is winning games is going to come down to one thing and one thing only: winning your fights. What's going on, guys? My name is Valued, and I'm super pumped about today's video because who doesn't love the beautiful sound of a squad wipe? Today, we're going to take a close look at the in-depth mechanics and principles that you can use to win more of your fights. Their shields are cracked, so let's push right into it. Alright guys, so we all know we want to deal as much damage as possible, and knowing when and how to peek effectively will allow you to always be in the position to do just that. Peeking generally refers to when you come out of cover to look for damage, and this skill forces you to take a large number of variables into consideration. You need to understand when you're safe to peek to deal damage and when you're not, especially when you consider that each squad has 3 members to think about, the ring is closing, how many heals you have, what guns your opponents have, and the list goes on and on. The number of variables and options you have of how and when you peek could be made into 100 videos, but let's touch on some key examples. Let's say you get caught out by an enemy and you hide behind a wall. He saw you entering your cover and maybe even got a few tags on you on your way in. You should probably heal that up, but enough about the healing, we're going to cover that a little bit later in the video. As you're ready to get back into the fight, you should tally up what you know and what you don't to decide how you want to peek. Is there more than one enemy in your line of sight? Is your team in position to help? What weapons were they shooting at you with, and are you in lethal range? What's your loadout looking like? Are you equipped to fight back at the range you're being shot from? And do you have nades or legend abilities you can use to get an upper hand before you start your gunfight? These questions and many more are what pros think about before they peek out of cover to take shots. This might seem a little bit overwhelming, but for the most part, you can boil down your checklist to a few major questions. Where are nearby enemies, and what sightlines are dangerous for me to peek? Where's my team, and are they in range to help me fight? Am I healthy, well looted, and ready to fight? If you have answers to these questions you feel comfortable with, you're on your path to mastering the when part of peeking. But how should you be peeking? The checklist we just discussed should be the basis for planning your next move. If you find yourself feeling uncomfortable with one of your checks, why is that? Is your team not nearby to help, and are you afraid there might be more enemies nearby? Then maybe you just run or you don't peek at all, waiting for your team to get into a better spot to help you. Or, if you have an AR and the enemy is at a good range, shoulder the corner a couple times, figure out exactly where they are, mix up your angles, and throw down some shots. The goal should be that you're only peeking when you know you can hit shots for good damage, and you're limiting putting yourself in a position to take too much damage. Whether you're strafing with an AR, peeking over a ridge for a cheeky sniper shot, or slide jumping towards the target with an SMG, the ways you can peek an enemy are endless. And we could talk about different techniques for peeking this entire video, but we'll have to save that for a deep dive another time. What would a fighting guy be without talking about some of the power of team shotting? The bottom line is there's no faster way to kill someone than for all 3 squad members to be focusing fire on one member. If your squad gets the jump on someone and communicates their target to each other, they can lay down some serious damage fast. It really doesn't even matter what weapons you have. If you get 2 RE45s gunning someone, they will disintegrate. Seriously. With this in mind, it's a good idea to keep your teammates close and their team shots closer, as it'll make winning fights a whole lot easier. Even if the Reddit threads are true and no one's getting good teammates, they're still going to help you take on an enemy squad. And at the very least, they keep you from getting team shot. The same way your squad deletes a solo that you happen to come across, you usually will get destroyed if a full squad gets the jump on you without your team's help. But we all know how good team shots are. The key is to keep yourself in a position to reap the benefits as much as possible. And in a full stack, this is much easier, as you can communicate with each other to fan out, staying in gunshot range, but still being spaced out enough to scout well and keep from getting seen at once. And if you aren't in a full stack, no problem. You can still space yourself from your team similarly. Finding this spacing balance will let you quickly respond to any enemies that engage your team, often getting a jump on them. This small amount of spacing allows individual party members often to remain unseen for just long enough to get free shots on the initial enemy. Think of it like each of you have a little bubble of vision, each having your own lines of sight. While you want to have different bubbles of vision to help with scouting, looting, and etc., you want to make sure that everyone's able to reach each other's line of sights in a timely fashion. The areas between your squads are usually covered, but the area outside of your team's vision bubble will be where most threats come from, and where you're going to be rotating. Constantly keeping an eye on your squad's zone of vision and keeping it tight will make team shotting come naturally, regardless if you're a solo or a 3-stack. And when you team shot more, you're going to win way more of your fights. And speaking of winning more fights, the coaches over at ProGuides.com can help you do just that. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned veteran, our top-ranked pros have the tools and ability to take you from where you are to where you dream of. Check it out in the description below. Alright guys, back into the guide. Sightlines can also be manipulated in your favor by applying what we talked about with your squad's zone of vision to enemy squads and making decisions around this. Let's say one of your nearby squad mates pings out an enemy and is getting into a fight. You don't have line of sight where you are currently, but they don't appear in immediate danger. You often may be in a near enough position to actually lead with a flank before even shooting a shot or alerting anyone of your presence. Focusing on your position first in a fight can put you in a much favorable position, often earning you free damage or even a swift cleanup off your squad's damage. This mindset of flanking doesn't only need to apply before fights. If you're in a fight and see an opportunity to wrap on your opponents without them noticing, it can seriously turn a fight in your favor. Let's say all 3 enemies are showing up on your ally's Bloodhound scan. With the entire enemy squad accounted for, you can dodge their sightlines and reposition. This is where having good map knowledge can be the difference maker, as knowing quick routes and sightlines to find these plays can be a big plus. If you can manage to wrap on them and pull off a flank, you'll often catch the enemy squad unaware, and in the worst case scenario, they now have to fight on 2 different fronts. Doing this, you can often single-handedly win fights. Just be careful that you're not over-pushing or flanking too far ahead of your team, because I can't count how many times I've had an Octane go for a play like this and my squad just turns and team shots him for a free kill because he flanked poorly. Another tip that can give you a huge increase on the number of fights you win is to focus on cutting enemies off from their team. We've all heard that it's strong to get that first knock, and the number one way to do this is to isolate an opponent. If you notice an enemy is over pushing solo like that Octane I just mentioned, or alone in a POI, you need to pounce on that situation like the RP hungry predator you are. While team shots are the number one way to down someone and you should try to ping them out to get the squad to focus fire, there's more to it than that. You should be trying to keep them separated with any legend abilities, keeping eyes for their team coming to save them. Using grenades or any CC you have to delay their team from assisting them will give you more time to finish off the first kill, turning the rest of the fight in your favor. Speed is everything when pulling this off, as you won't have but a few precious seconds usually to lock down an enemy before their squad comes running to the rescue. Isolating and killing a member of a squad will often cause them to make poor decisions, over pushing for their teammates' res or banner. Having a numbers advantage in Apex is actually such a big deal, and if you get really good at isolating targets and getting that first knock, your squad will be playing with that advantage a lot. And on the topic of getting that first knock, being proactive about your healing can help you prevent becoming just that for an enemy squad. Obviously, keeping an eye on your health and topping your shield and HP when getting low is a good idea, but there's so much more to it than that. Every time that you get cracked or take heavy damage, this is being communicated between the enemy squad. When you duck out of sight to heal, they know this, and now your team is down a gun while you heal. And depending on the item, this can take up to 8 seconds, and that's 8 full seconds that you're essentially useless. During that time, you're free to be pushed and unable to hit shots on your enemies if they come into the open. Now, if your whole squad happens to get low at once, then you know the enemy squad is going to smell blood in the water and start pushing. And if you're stuck healing, well, game over. But a big way to stagger these heal timings and ensure you don't get stuck defenseless is to be dynamic about your healing. As you're getting dinked up, keep throwing shield cells in here and there to keep yourself topped off. Don't wait until you're nearly dead to pop a PK. Sell early and often, and if you need to use a battery, communicate this with your team so you can stagger your heals. If you see one of your teammates is low, then try to give them that pressure for those few crucial seconds while they get their heals off. Being proactive about your shield especially will keep you healthier in fights and will help your squad maintain pressure. This pressure will let you react and push when you crack an enemy's shield or see an enemy attempt to push you. And by increasing your uptime, you increase your output, and the more output, the more fights that you're gonna win. And if you're finishing up a fight in close range, prio getting damage and then healing after. Far too many times, I've seen a player get the last member of a squad one shot, but stop to charge their shields before finishing them off. And oftentimes, this playstyle will get you killed, as it gives a chance for the enemy to get their bearings as well. If you have a health advantage, focus on finishing the fight unless they get away or you have to heal. Every second you're healing, you're completely vulnerable, so spread it out over your fight and don't get stuck crossing your fingers waiting for your medkit to pop. If you guys can expand your mindset about fighting and how to approach the game, you'll keep seeing your skill level go up and up along with your rank. Let us know in the comments below which part of today's video you found the most helpful, or if you've already found success with the things we talked about today. Anyway guys, my name has been Valued, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.